Okay, so today we're going to go after a big key muscle in the hips and pelvis that comes off the low back and goes into the front of the hip. It's called the psoas. It's the main hip flexor, which is to raise the leg in this maneuver. This muscle actually comes off the spine and goes into the front of the hip, so obviously we have two of them. And so the best way to find it is if you find the bone in the front of your hip, your belly button, right in the middle of those two, at a 45-degree angle is right where that muscle's at. So belly button, bone, right in the middle, 45-degree angle. Right there. Obviously you're going through some intestines and stuff like that in there, but if you kind of like, once we do these and you gently sink into the area, you'll feel the muscle. Because we sit all day long, and people who are like accountants, attorneys, etc., these people are going to really struggle with this muscle being tight. Or if you're in triathlons and you're on the bike a lot, and then you're expected to go up and run and extend through the hip, that's a real troublesome thing. So when this muscle tightens up, it limits the hip coming back in extension. If the hip proper cannot come back in extension, you will compress the back as an escape. So that'll create some facet compression and disc irritation in the back. So this muscle really needs to be able to let go to allow for sufficient push off with running. So which is an obvious limitation for speed, because the less you can push off, the slower you'll be. So getting this muscle to release is critical for running. It's also vital in every single period, every single back issue. This muscle is involved. Because the way the body works is, if the back is irritated, it will always clamp down the back or the hip. It will always tighten the strongest structures in the area to stabilize it. It's called a pathological stability pattern. And for the back and the hip, it'll always tighten the psoas. So we get it from a lot of things. So if you have back issues, if you have hip issues, and you sit a lot, this muscle's involved. You have to absolutely release it, without a doubt. Even if you don't feel symptoms in this area, it's involved. If you sit, if you have back issues, or if you have hip issues, you have to address it. So there's a product called Pso-Rite out there that's really effective. It is very expensive, but it is very effective. And so basically, So being PSO-Rite. So basically the idea here is, as I said, there are two psoas, and you can see the height of this will get into the abdomen. And basically I'm going to find that structure, and you're going to lay on the Pso-Rite, right on that structure, just like this. And so over the course of 2 to 3 minutes, you're going to hold dead pressure on this muscle. The basic idea is, once you hold dead pressure on a muscle, basically over the course of multiple minutes, a lot of fluid will rush to the area to dissolve the restriction in that muscle. So if I just got on this for like 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds, it's not really enough time to get the release in the muscle. I've got to really nurse the restriction for over the course of 2 to 3 minutes. And so you can use this product, which, like I said, is available, but fairly expensive, or you can mimic it with some other products. So say you have a small frame like me, where the psoas is really only about 1 inch deep. I could potentially use something like a tennis ball. Not optimal, but I could. A better object would be something like a softball or softball size. So again, I'm going to lunge the softball right there, and again, hold dead pressure on it until it releases, which is, like I said, over the course of a couple minutes. Another thing you can do is relax your torso down and then lift the leg up like this. When you lift the leg up, you want to make sure that you're contracting the glute to take pressure off of this muscle here. So a lot of times we'll get a better stretch and a structure in this muscle when we can activate the opposing structure. Probably the easiest example of this would be the elbow. If I want to bend the elbow, I have to concurrently contract the biceps and relax the triceps. Reciprocal inhibition is the fancy term for that. So same thing here. If I want this tight muscle to release, I would want to concurrently contract the opposing muscle, which would be the glute. So to get this to properly stretch, I would contract the glute. So that's another way of doing it. So we're talking about two forms of exercise here. We can hold dead pressure on the muscle 2 to 3 minutes. And then we can apply pressure on the muscle and extend the hip and contract the glute to get it to release. Now, if you have a little bit bigger frame versus somebody like me, you can get a kettlebell and then lunge in on the muscle just like that. So, but obviously for somebody like me, that's going to be too much force. But for somebody with a bit stronger torso and a bit bigger torso, they're going to need a kettlebell to get deeper into that muscle. Because obviously you can see the height difference there. So that would be the effective measure for that one. So basically, just depending on your size, depending on how tight the muscle is, you can kind of tinker with things. But basically, hold it for 2 to 3 minutes, and in addition to that, doing the extension. 10 to 15 reps, couple sets would be fine. So again, if you sit a lot, if you have back issues, if you have hip issues, even if you don't feel pain there, it's involved. So always do this.